Hello, everybody. I am Susan John, and I will be the moderator for the webinar today. We thank you for your attendance and appreciate your willingness to learn about supporting people through career advancement and supported employment. Just a few housekeeping items prior to getting started. We are recording the webinar today, and it will be available for later viewing and uploaded to the South Carolina Human Service Providers YouTube channel. The chat feature has been turned off, and we ask that you put all questions through the Q&A feature of the Zoom platform. At the end of the session, we will work to answer any questions that have been submitted. And if for some reason we are unable to answer those questions, we will complete a list and send out the answers via email. I am pleased to introduce to you today, again, Janine Pavlak with the National Expansion of Employment Opportunities Network. Welcome, Janine.
Thank you, Susan, and good morning, everyone. I'm super excited to be here on this beautiful day and talking about one of my favorite topics, actually, technology. A little bit about me for anyone who's new. I've been in the field of disability or supported employment, I should really say, for 36 years now. So I literally, once out of college, I started as an employment specialist, and here I am now. I lead an organization that provides employment services to people in the states of Connecticut and Massachusetts. And as Susan mentioned, this is a project through ODEP's National Expansion of Employment Opportunity Network, part of their initiatives to really kind of look at expanding providers' capacity to support more individuals to enter competitive integrated employment. I'm happy to share more with you later if you have any questions about that. So let's get started. Just a quote. I've got to move my bar here. But this just says it all for, to me, right? For most people, technology makes things easier. But with people with disabilities, technology can also make things possible. There's so many different technologies out there, and different apps and different, products out there that are really game changers now. And as things continue to advance, I'm sure we're going to see more and more and more. But we take technology for granted, I feel like most of us, right? We all use our laptops, we all have our cell phones, but oftentimes the people that we're supporting don't have those opportunities. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. And now my slide's not advancing, even though it did in the practice session. Sorry, there we go. All right. So we're going to talk about enabling technology and how it differs from assistive technology. I'm going to give some examples of some different apps and different products to help, kind of with different disabilities. We'll talk a little bit about identifying funding and about, kind of moving forward if you're an organization that's just kind of getting started in this, kind of things to consider prior to, kind of pushing the agenda to start exploring more enabling and assistive technologies to help your job seekers. Although, to me, what's kind of interesting because I feel like once COVID hit, um, the only positive part was that technology, we were all looking for ways to stay connected, right, with those that we serve. And so we were all really looking towards technology and starting to kind of implement some things. Yet the Assistive Technology Act was first passed in 1988, and that was specifically, and then reauthorized in 1994, and then again in 1998. But it was really to be looking at what technologies can help people with disabilities back then. Why I bring that up is just, so many years later, we're really just kind of sinking our teeth into that. So the Assistive Technology Act certainly expanded access to assistive technology to really look at promoting independence, productivity, and inclusion for individuals with disabilities. What ended up happening is that state assistive technology programs were created and supported, and many of them have device loans and demonstrations that people can go try out some different technologies and then possibly, kind of get those lent to them for a period of time. It also provides funding for training, technical assistance, and awareness. So ultimately, the impact of the act was to increase opportunities for individuals of all ages to use assistive technology in education, employment, and in daily life. But there's barriers to technology, and this probably will feel familiar to a lot of you in terms of really looking at those individuals that you're supporting. But, technology can be expensive, and not everyone can afford the technology or the applications that would best support them, or they just haven't been exposed to technology. So it's a relatively new thing, right? There's really a lack of awareness and education. In rural areas, particularly, there's lack of access to the technology programs and to finding products out in the community. There's also social and cultural factors. So sometimes, kind of stigma and biases related to the visibility of people with disabilities can lead to resistance in using assistive and enabling technology. And then, of course, there's policy and regulatory gaps. So, we live in a slow and fairly inefficient bureaucratic process. So sometimes even trying to start the conversation about exploring technology and gaining access to some of the people that we serve can be a very lengthy process. And then then looking at, well, is this, kind of what then happens with your waiver services while you're using the technology. So, all kind of questions start to arise. And so sometimes it just means that our field in particular just kind of doesn't move as far as we can when it comes to technology. But we know that it increases functional independence, safety, and access. Again, technology is specifically helpful in terms of employment and education and daily living. I don't know if any of you are running those smart homes, but I had an opportunity to go visit one in Ohio, and it was amazing what individuals who had had 24-hour, supervision were really just being, for the most part, using technology with, significantly reduction in the amount of time that staff actually needed to be in the home. But some examples are, communication devices, some environmental controls, and some adaptive applications. Again, I'll give you a few examples as we dig through the webinar. But the fact of the matter is, right, there's always going to be a workforce shortage. We are not never going to be fully staffed. We're always going to be short staffed. So really looking at how do we assist the individuals that we're supporting to be as independent and autonomous as possible, we need to be looking at these solutions. More independence as we support people to become more independent, then the less staff is needed, which provides multiple benefits, right? People are seen as competent. It's easier for people to be included and make friends when we're not kind of hanging around there. It provides opportunities for people to really kind of gain some control over their lives. And it supports us to not over supporting anyone, which means that everyone who is referred, then we then have the bandwidth to continue to provide services. So technology is a way, it should be seen as, kind of one of our tools in our toolbox. The intent isn't just to reduce staff, although that's a benefit. Really, the benefit is to help someone become more independent and autonomous in their daily life. Technology really levels the playing field as well. As I mentioned in an earlier slide, the majority of us really rely on our devices. I know I have my Apple phone, which I have reminders on there for me. Certainly, I can communicate with my coworkers, my family, and my friends through my phone. I've got my laptop, and I use all different kinds of things on my laptop to help me be more efficient in my work. I have a smartwatch. So, as technologies are developed and we're as the consumers, we're kind of accessing all of this, it really, once we support the individuals that we serve to have access to that technology and from those devices, it really levels the playing field and enhances the quality of life for everyone. And it really can increase the engagement and participation in all life domains. So really kind of increasing engagement and participation at home, in the community, and at work. So our traditional approach to job coaching was, again, us providing training to individuals, asking the employer to assist, but we really kind of took over those responsibilities. Um, and once we start doing that, it becomes really hard for job coaches to reduce their support, creating this, kind of revolving, kind of as a job coach, I always need to be there. Which then what happens is the employer doesn't really look at their employee as one of their employees because as a job coach who's paid to provide supports, I'm kind of in that middle. And so it's awkward for the employer and the individual. And it also prevents coworkers in really kind of developing those natural relationships with their new coworker again, because we're in the way and we're present, and people then kind of look to us as the experts. Where, again, if we look at reducing that, these opportunities for people to be, kind of more included in the workplace, have the employer take ownership over their new employee, it becomes an and easier discussion, certainly, and a better outcome. But technology also grants us speed, access, and adaptability all alongside the destruction of harmful labels. And the key thing is it provides consistency in staffing, which is often the key to someone being successful on the job, right? So technology gives us the ability to widely distribute consistency. So we're not, different personalities aren't going in and possibly providing different levels of support because we're human beings. So we're really looking at this technology to say, how can this be provide a consistent tool in teaching this individual and supporting this individual, again, at home, at work, and in the community. So, simply put, leveraging technology for employment in particular can enhance productivity, streamline processes, foster collaboration, and enable continuous learning and development. So, by effectively using technology, individuals can optimize their work and achieve better outcomes. So there is a difference. I kind of alternate my wording. So I use assistive technology and I also talk about enabling technology, which are similar, but they are different. And so enabling technology is really looking at anything that's available, including off-the-shelf and customizable devices and services that really empower independence and enhance the quality of life for an individual. Technology first language is used to describe agencies, organizations, or states that have embraced technology and related services to improve quality of life and empower independence. There are a few states, and I'm sure I'm definitely not going to name them all, but I will say that Ohio, Tennessee, those two states that I'm aware of have technology first language. And those two states I feel like are kind of ahead of the curve in terms of identifying and implementing different technologies to enhance the quality of life for the people of those, receiving services in those two states. And again, there are many other states. I hope I'm not, don't take it as other states aren't doing that great work, but Ohio and Tennessee, you can, kind of Google and see what their technology first language is and kind of how they're implementing different technologies throughout their state support services. So really the difference is enabling technology is designed to benefit a broad user base and improve overall capabilities, while assistive technology is specifically tailored to address a specific need of an individual with a disability. So examples of enabling technology include smartphones, tablets, wearables such as smartwatches or earbuds, apps that come on oftentimes on our products, specifically Apple, but also Android has apps as well, different computer softwares, or any other technology that can be used. Where assistive technology, as I said, really focuses on helping individuals with disabilities overcome functional limitations. So enabling technology really improves overall capabilities, where assistive technology is very specific. So examples of assistive technology would include mobility aids, screen readers, braille displays, hearing aids, adaptive keyboards, alternative mice, to help an individual kind of navigate their computer, where again, enabling technology is something that's quite present and easier to access. So just a few examples. There's different types of technology, obviously. There's low tech, high tech. There's lots of free applications, and then there's very expensive technology. And I know years ago when I thought of technology, I was really kind of thinking of, oh, it's really expensive. I was thinking of some of the communication devices that some of the individuals who I served were lucky enough to have, but they were very expensive back then when I started in the field. I didn't think about things like low tech technology. I never would have thought, tennis balls, pencil grippers, post-it notes. I never would have considered that um, uh, technology, assistive or enabling technology. So we need to be really open-minded when we think about what can someone use to meet their specific goals. What's out there and what can we try? So again, I just mentioned this, assistive technology, again, canes, walkers, wheelchairs, prosthetic devices, for sensory, um, issues, hearing aids, glasses, vision boards, augmentative and alternative communication devices, and cognitive tools, apps and tools for kind of daily organization and reminders, which I use all the time, as I mentioned. What we need to just be really mindful about, though, is that it's really about the person. And so our thinking needs to be very person-centered, and technology really needs to be considered for the specific person while planning for its use and practicing it. So, this is directed by the person. It specifically relates to the goals that they want to achieve, and they direct how or when to start using some of this technology. Now, it's up to us, oftentimes, to introduce technology and talk about the benefits of it, but it really needs to be person-centered and driven by the person and be very specific to the goals that that individual wants to meet. That starts with an assessment process. So, really looking at work, home, and in the community, where is someone struggling to possibly achieve more autonomy or independence? Kind of what are those things that are limiting someone that we can start talking about and looking at different technologies. We're really evaluating physical, mental, and cognitive skills. And when through that process, we're performing the gap analysis and seeing then what are the goals that have been identified by the individual that we're serving, and where's the gap in them meeting that specific goal. And then we start looking at what then can we utilize. And some of that is staffing, but what else can we utilize to help someone really maximize their independence and really reach and achieve those outcomes of the goals that that specific person wanted? One of the things that I realized, oh boy, it's been at least 5 years, if not more, is that it's easy and to think about technology, right? Like, oh, we can start doing this. But where I failed was that my staff, when I tried it, when I started really talking about my organization and using technology and the benefits of that for the individuals we serve, I didn't have buy-in necessarily from all of our staff. And so kind of what I was communicating, although it wasn't my intent, was making my staff fearful that these great, technologies, applications, whatever it is that we're using are replacing me. But it doesn't really mean that the staff is being replaced. But that is how they took it. Like, oh, all right, I'm gonna, implement this whatever technology that, we believe will help this person meet their goals. What does that mean then for my job? Right? Like as I'm not having to be with someone, what do I do with my time? And as I said earlier, there's always going to be individuals coming into our services who need support. And so we in no way are replacing staff. We're broadening our bandwidth and our capacity to serve additional people through using technology. So you really have to, kind of create a culture of technology, a culture of, kind of exploration, a culture of, kind of really being able to try and question things. Because if the managers and the supervisors and the staff aren't understanding the value of the technology, it's not going to be implemented or it won't be implemented correctly. So again, we really need to be kind of creating that environment where everyone feels supported learning about the different technologies that exist. So obviously there's two camps of thinking, right? There's confidence and there versus competence. And so some of our staff say, I'm going to do whatever needs to be done to accomplish the task, where others, technology is something that I can break. It's stressful and I'm not good at it. So there's lots of fears from our staff's perspective of how am I going to implement technology when I don't even understand it. So we really, again, need to support that learning process and create a safe environment for staff to try and ask questions and um, kind of push back a little bit, but then go, try it themselves to see how it works. Which means that it takes our staff, we really need to be developing a growth mindset. We need to support our staff to really acknowledge their own weaknesses. Some people are much better at learning technology than others. I'm one who I feel like technology hates me, and typically doesn't work the way it's supposed to. But that's okay, right? We can start at a place of learning. We just have to prioritize that learning. Focus on the process. Again, make it a safe place so that mistakes are just mistakes, and that's fine. We can let that go. And making sure that staff know that they can ask for help whenever is needed. And I'll talk about some different things that we tried as an organization for our staff to start kind of getting that confidence, and understanding the importance of that technology. But you need a champion. I learned that after a few months of just kind of my initiative not taking off, you really need a champion who is excited about learning about technology and who's confident about um, playing with it, learning with it, teaching others how to use it. Without that champion, it's going to be hard really to kind of set that culture, that technology is a positive and that this is going to help us do our best work and help the individuals that we're supporting live their best life. So we went through a process. There's an organization that's called Tech First Shift, and they provide certification, specific certification to providers and individual staff to use enabling technology. And so this is Jake on my screen here. Jake works in our IT department. He's pretty much our IT staff, but he's also an enabling technology integration specialist. And this was a real critical role for us as an organization to kind of move technology to the next level. With Jake in that role, so he went through the Tech First Shift online learning platform. He had to, kind of test his knowledge on specific things. It's an ongoing kind of recertification process. It's not terribly expensive, but Jake is our champion. And so now we have a process that as people come into our services, if someone's interested, Jake will meet with that individual and their family or their team to really talk about, again, the key piece, the individual's goals and then do an assessment and then talk about here are the technologies, available technologies that could help you meet those specific goals. And then if that individual is interested, then we talk about funding, lending, kind of what are the options to get that technology to that individual And then Jake will support the individual and their team while they're learning along with our staff. So, Jake then can, kind of move on, but he's always there for questions as staff have questions. But this was a critical role for us, the enabling technology integration specialist. Some waivers in some states, I know Maine, for one example, in their waiver requirements, they require staff to have the enabling technology certification. So some states actually have that language written in their waivers. So, the specific enabling technology integration specialist is really for professionals who specialize in the integration of enabling technology. So, he's the person in our organization that completes the assessments and identifies and implements the appropriate technology solutions, provides the training, and he really serves as a resource and a mentor to other staff. So, as I said earlier, it's really time to start embracing technology and all that it has to offer because we're going to continue to struggle with a diminishing workforce. We're also going to see more and more budget limitations. It's the nature of our field. And so, again, by really adopting innovative approaches and really looking at, technology as an alternate service model, we can then be better prepared to face those challenges more successfully. So this is a tough one since we disabled the chat, but I would love for you just to spend a minute and just think about what technology that you've used specifically for either yourself or someone that you're serving. I'm not going to have you put it in the chat, obviously, but at the end, it would be great for you all to share with one another kind of some of the technologies that you've tried or that you are currently using. So just take a minute and give a little bit of thought, maybe jot down a few notes. Okay, it wasn't quite a minute, but hopefully you all had a chance to do that. So now I'm going to give you some examples of some specific applications that we've used that have been incredibly helpful. Mind you, these are not the only ones. So I really encourage you to, kind of do some research and really look to see what's out there. But a few years ago, we met a gentleman who he's a father of a son with autism, and him and his wife, he's a researcher by nature, and a software developer, I believe. Anyway, his son is in high school and they're trying to think about life after high school. And they were really struggling to see how their son was going to be able to do like some of the things that everyone was hoping that he would be successfully doing upon graduation. So he, along with a team of people, created an application that you download on your Apple phone. It's called Life Sherpa. Um, and it's cloud-based, but it's almost like Facebook, Outlook, video, like everything in one application. So, um, the best part about it is that it really provides reminders to people. It can have very specific assigned tasks, like a task analysis that's customizable and tailored to each person. It has an emotional regulation support build the application. And so staff, and it connects with the staff and the rest of the team. It's an app that, kind of home uses, when the community someone uses and at work. And it allows someone, again, completely customizable depending on what they need. Staff can be monitoring how someone's doing, let's say, emotionally, if someone's struggling with some of that emotional regulation. There's, different buttons. They can push green for things are going really good, yellow for I'm getting a little anxious. I might need to call you, to red. I'm really struggling right now. Call me. And the staff it's live and it's, happening right then. And that allows the staff person to immediately make a phone call, talk to the person, kind of come up with a plan, or the staff person to then go on site, whatever needs to be done. But again, it has all sorts of other features too. So if you're supporting somebody who doesn't necessarily have consistent tasks, maybe on Wednesday things are a little different. You can videotape the person doing the specific job in the correct manner, and the individual can go, through their Life Sharp app, go and look, kind of at the video as a reminder of what to do next, or all sorts of other things. What's a nice component of it as well is it captures the data on how much intervention was needed. And so we can really see through that data that the app is collecting, kind of the independence that someone's gaining as they're using that app. And figure out there's specific times based on that data, maybe that we're always going to need to be involved or not. So for people who have low or no vision, there's a few different apps. Again, I'm only highlighting a few because of the time, but Seeing AI, it's again an app that you put on your phone, you use your camera, and it converts the visual data into audio feedback. So it can read short text aloud, it can scan books or documents, it can scan barcodes to be told what an object is. It can recognize people, surroundings, and colors. So I was supporting an organization specifically around fading strategies, um, because they were stuck with some of the individuals, and they understand the importance of really fading kind of those employment support. So the person's really, has an opportunity to become more really included in that workspace. And they're working with a gentleman who has low vision. And although it might not have been the best job match, he was working at a convenience store. And so we ended up trying this app. And what it allowed this gentleman to do is he could just kind of scan the environment. So he knew like that nothing was in his way. And so staff used to have to be there supporting him one on one because there might have been something, in the way that maybe he wouldn't see, or um, something might have changed in the workspace that he couldn't see. And so this app allowed this gentleman to scan his environment on a regular basis and then kind of course correct himself without having staff needing to be there verbally directing him. Same thing, Be My Eyes, not the same thing, but similar. This app connects you with a volunteer who can talk to you. They see what the phone's camera is seeing, and they talk about and assist the person with whatever they need. So you can ask them to read something, identify something, or guide you somewhere. It's very simple, and it can help with other tasks that other applications can't. It also has a large and diverse network of volunteers who are friendly and helpful. So Be My Eyes, another great app for people with low or no vision. So virtual reality headsets. If I could see all of you, and I could see hands raised, I bet there's a large amount of people on this call who have tried virtual reality headsets. There's all sorts of like fun things you can do with them, experiences that you can have that you never would have experienced. You can experience through virtual reality, but it has many, many other functions. And so the beauty of virtual reality is that it provides immersive learning experiences, and it allows people to practice things risk-free. Practice things maybe that they didn't know if they wanted to do, have an experience that they might not have been able to experience, but it enables that hands-on learning, and it improves retention and recall. And so when we use at my organization virtual reality, we work with a provider called Reality Garage. Again, there's many out there, but we are working with Reality Garage, and we've worked with them to create a series of virtual reality videos, I guess. And so there's, videos on workplace etiquette. There's videos on doing different kinds of jobs. And so we have a manufacturing one. And so someone who's kind of thinking maybe manufacturing, they can actually like through virtual reality, they go into a manufacturing environment. They get to physically with the handsets, be manipulating and trying out specific jobs. They're interfacing with a person who's like maybe giving them a tour. There's workplace etiquette where someone's, kind of talking about, how do I call, what is the handbook? How do I call out? How do I ask for time off? How do I ask for my review? All those kinds of things, all through virtual reality, which really allows both staff and the individual to feel more prepared and again have that experience to decide if that's really something that they actually want to learn more about and actually go and do that in the community at home or for work. So communication, it used to be, again, as I mentioned earlier, the very expensive communication tools, which are still available and are still very helpful for some individuals. But there's also just apps in our phone that aids in communications. There's memos or notes. I'm a big one on taking notes in my phone. There's free and paid applications. These are just some examples. Evernote, Google Keep, Office. Again, if you just Google, apps to aid in communication, you'll get a broad list of different things that you can try, some which could be free, some which might have a cost to it. So some free applications in communication. Let Me Talk is one. Common Boards Lite. And then these are the paid ones that are expensive, the Proloco To Go. Com boards, the Dynafox, those are certainly have a more cost to them, but they are great devices and work very well for some people who need those. Does that, well, I can't ask the question, but Siri and Alexa and Google Assistant, ChatGPT, all these things are available to us that we can access and ask questions about to gain more information or ask directions or ask to call someone for us or turn off the lights. It's amazing. And we don't think of these things, right? A lot of us probably use Siri on our phone. A lot of us on this call probably have, a Dot or a Google Nest or an Alexa, any of those things that we're using on a regular basis. And we just don't naturally think about, using those as a way to help someone gain independence. And so these are great assistants for people to be able to access. Again, just in your Apple phone, Androids as well. I'm not as familiar with Android, but there's, timers in our phone that we can use. You can take photos, record videos. We oftentimes will FaceTime someone before we go and get them. Let's say someone has an interview and we're picking them up at 9. Oftentimes we'll FaceTime with someone and just, make sure that they're ready, that they're appropriately dressed, that they have everything they need. That works better for some folks than just a phone call. GPS location, again, it's up to the individual. It's their choice whether or not to share that, to use that application, but it's extremely helpful. An example of how we use it, we have a project search. We have two project search sites. And the individuals who attend that program and doing their internships on these different host businesses, there's maybe 8 people all needing to be at a different place on campus, which is where one of our project search sites is. And so instead of having, 6 to 8 different staff working and supporting someone to get from point A to point B, we do initial walkthroughs as a group. We kind of practice, but then they use their GPS location. So in there, it's already populated. They just turn it on and it can direct them like to exactly where they need to be on campus. And on our phones, we can make sure that they are going in the right area and that they've arrived. And if not, we can find out where they are and go assist if needed. Again, it reduces the stigma of us being side by side the whole time. It also allows us to be working with other people during times that individuals now are able to do that independently. So Bluetooth and Wi-Fi smart technologies are available. And so these are things like earbuds, again, tracking devices, fitness trackers, smartwatches. They have Bluetooth enabled toothbrushes, trash cans. There was a smart home, as I mentioned earlier, that I went to, and they have a smart stove and a smart refrigerator. And these people living in that home have low vision and developmental disabilities. And they really went from a 24, hour 24/7 home being supported to different devices that they can reach out and like call for their staff, different devices that speak to them if the stove is hot or when it's ready, all different things that these individuals are able to navigate now through these Bluetooth and Wi-Fi smart technologies that prior to that, they were reliant on staff to do all of these different things. Pill dispensers, there's 3D printing objects. Oftentimes, you can go to universities and they can create some 3D tools that you might be able to use for someone that, would meet their specific need. So again, just really opening your mind to what could possibly be of assistance to this person. There is wording, as I said, in some of the HCBS waivers, but states have begun expanding their waiver definitions to include broader classifications, and really looking at enabling technology. So oftentimes now, because of the waiver, the Medicaid waiver, people can access some new technologies for home work and in the community without having to pay out of pocket. At the same time, I can say this again and again, all states are experiencing reductions in our workforce. And so, that raises concerns about the lack of qualified staff, right? Being in homes and being out in the community with individuals and acknowledging through the waivers that these technologies can work and should be looked at and identified to reduce that dependence on paid staff. And so it's really now, in many of the states' waivers, really looking at sustainable solutions of enabling technology integration, sorry, as an effective tool for support. And so as states are becoming more aware and more proactive about using technology and supporting providers to be identifying and using different technologies to support the individuals that they work with, more and more language is coming out, and more support is being shown, as well in many of the states to be exploring these options. So here's a slide, and then I'm going to open up for questions because we've got quite a bit of time left. But this is just a slide where the assistive technology program is in South Carolina. I'm sure many of you have this information, but it gives you the program director's information. You can try a demo and it tells you with who you can, get a device loan program. But then on the right of the slide, it says all list bridging apps. You can click on that and it brings you to a list of Easter Seals, um, all of the technologies that Easter Seals has available that also you can partner with to try or borrow, or get some expertise from them. So my last slide by Walt Disney, the way to get started is to quit talking about it and begin doing it, right? Nothing moves forward until we try. So we need to start really kind of pushing and learning about how these technologies can really be implemented to improve the quality of life for those we serve. And then here's my contact information. It really is about bridging opportunities and independence. Stop sharing. Okay. So opening up for questions, and I'd love to hear any of the tools that you're using to support people. Please share.
So we do have a more of a comment in the Q&A. Can I get a printable copy of the contact slides, the slide deck from today? And that will be available. Janine's going to send that to me later, and we will definitely have that available for folks after the webinar. Again, I'm going to encourage you to in the next day or two, go back out to the South Carolina Human Service Providers Association website. Down at the bottom is a link to our YouTube channel, and this will be available on YouTube as well later. Janine made a comment in reference to the University of South Carolina device loan program. It is very an exceptional opportunity. Rochelle Johnson, that was information that Janine had on her slide. They are, offer many opportunities for loans and for trials before purchase. So I encourage you to become familiar with that as well.
Thanks, Susan. Any other questions? Anybody using anything now that you would love to share?
If you are, please put that in the Q&A and we'll answer it from the Q&A. Give it a few minutes.
My contact information is also on the last slide, so feel free to reach out with any questions. And if I can't answer them, I'll certainly introduce you to someone who might be a question for you.
I will share for those that are on the call and on the webinar that we are, as an association, working with the South Carolina South Carolina Department of Health and Human Services to modify the waiver language that will go into the next amendment in order for technology and assistive technologies and remote options to be available through the HCBS waiver program. So you'll be hearing
Right.
more as we move forward on that, you'll be hearing more about that as well. Janine, I don't see anybody sharing anything in the Q&A at the moment.
Okay. Well, I never mind giving extra time back to folks.
Well, so we certainly appreciate your time today, Janine. You have your information is always valuable. We always have great takeaways from the webinars that you've had over the last couple months. So there is a question, how does billing work with these? Maybe some of the different apps. How does billing work with some of the different apps? What has your experience been with some of the billing if you use a paid app or you use paid technology?
So it depends. Sometimes through the technology programs, like through University of South Carolina, you can get them. Oftentimes, what we've seen is that VR or even the waiver has paid for specific devices for individuals. And for some, even health insurance, going through one's health insurance has been very effective as well at being able to purchase some of the things that people want. Life Sherpa in particular is an app that really goes with the person. So if they leave your program, that app goes with them, right? Because that's how they're getting around and they're living their life. We've seen some states that VR has purchased that for the individual because it's an annual subscription. Um, Again, depending on waiver language, sometimes waiver dollars can work for that as well. And then we've done some grant writing. It certainly, doesn't cover forever, but we have done some grant writing for some specific technology apps and things that people need.
So we also just had a comment that this has been wonderful information and thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm glad.
Yeah.
But even if money's a concern, look at the free thing. It's like every day I'm like, huh, I need to try that. Like ChatGPT is my new best friend.
Yeah. And many of those, like Seeing AI, those are historically free apps that you can utilize. There's a lot of free apps out there that you can just find through the App Store just by doing a simple search.
Right.
Yeah. But we got a couple more. Hold on. Also curious how to bill for support time when assisting remotely.
So that depends on the state as well. And so Interestingly, I provide services in two states. So Massachusetts allows me to bill that time, and I have the backup data as well. It's because I'm tracking information. Connecticut, I can't yet bill for the remote supports that we would be providing through the app. And so honestly, it's still a benefit to us because it's reducing people's dependency on us. And so we're able to serve more people. And so we're never out of work and out of billable hours. And we're really just demonstrating that the person can be and should be as autonomous and independent as they can. So it really depends on your state.
And I would assume that it gives that person the autonomy, but it also gives your staff the opportunity to go see them when they really need to see them. So it
Exactly.
leverages that time as well.
Absolutely.
But you're able to bill for that face-to-face time, I'm assuming through your traditional method of billing.
Right.
Yeah.
People oftentimes ask about parents and employers' receptivity to someone using their iPhone. And again, COVID really changed conversations with employers. And so we've seen the majority of employers um, be fine when they're understanding why someone's using the phone and what they're using it for, to replace our role because employers appreciate that too, not having more bodies in a specific area. And so sometimes what we've done is provide the individual with a cell phone that only has the apps that they need and they can't download like games or anything. And then they just leave their phone at work and get it next time they go back. Or, sometimes they'll bring it back and forth. That's really dependent on the person and the employer. Like, is there a place to store it safely and that kind of stuff. But employers have been incredibly receptive.
So one other question, is there a communication device for individuals that a waiver will cover? Is there a
Depends on the
communication
state.
device for individuals that waiver will cover?
It depends on the state, really. Every state waiver is different.
I would suggest going and working through your case management entity on that. Um, and because it's a communication device, I would think assistive technology might be an alternative funding opportunity through the waiver for that as well. But I'm gonna suggest you go back to your case manager and work through that process.
Thank you, Susan.
All right, Janine, I think right now that's all the questions that we have. We certainly appreciate you again, and your willingness to share your expertise with us, and we look forward to the next time that you're with us.
Thank you
We
so
don't
much.
have that schedule. We don't have that scheduled yet, but we will have you back for sure. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody. Have a great
everybody.
rest of your week.